it's Enoch again for day 5 of Native American Appreciation Month, and today I thought we'd spotlight a powerful person in U.S. history, Native Americans who make an impact. And, if I had an echoey voice, that would be really cool and powerful, but I don't. But anyways, the person I thought we'd spotlight today or take a look at is a major player in the world of preservation of Native American culture, and more importantly, the Sioux culture. The Dakotas is where she was located, and her name is Ella Cara Deloria. Now, this is a name that you probably never heard of before, especially if you're not into Native American anthropology, but she played a major role and a major focus in the saving and the preservation of the actual Sioux culture. She was born in 1889 at the Standing Rock Reservation. And her father was a man by the name of Philip Deloria, who turned out to be the very first Episcopalian preacher from the Sioux Reservation. So she grew up both as a Sioux world, but also in the Christianity world. At the reservation, she went to the Standing Rock Reservation Mission School when she was a little kid, and then she went to the high school at the All Saints School at the Sioux Falls in South Dakota. From there, she got a scholarship to go to Oberlin College. And she stayed at Oberlin College for 2 years, and after her 2 years there, she transferred on to Columbia University. While she was at Columbia University, she met a man named Franz Boas, who is hailed as primarily the father of modern anthropology. So her moving to Columbia and meeting up with Franz opened up the doorways to a lot of these ideas of anthropology. Now, Ella, she never really saw herself as an anthropologist. She just saw herself as a person who really cared about the Sioux culture and wanted to document it. So she never kind of considered herself a huge anthropological source, even though a lot of schools and a lot of anthropology studies actually use her textbooks to this day. So she graduated in 1915, and what happened in 1915 was Ella's mother got really sick. So she ended up going home to the reservation and taking care of her mother until she died a year later. What happened afterwards was, about like 6 months afterwards, her sister was diagnosed with a brain tumor. So Ella really wanted to go back and work with Franz again and kind of continue her education, but she wasn't able to because she wanted to stay and take care of her mother and then her sister. She ended up taking care of her sister until she passed away in 1927. So it really wasn't until 1927 that she was able to get back to working with Franz Boas. Now, at the time of Ella's undergraduate, when she was working with Franz, he was paying her $18 a month to do translations on Sioux texts. So she would go and she would interview elders and try to hear stories and try to do translations for him. So he would pay her $18 a month. That continued when she went back to work with him in 1927. So imagine living off of $18 a month. It's not a lot. And she really wasn't making that much money, and trying to survive was kind of difficult for her. So in order for her to continue her work, she ended up selling some of her family land and some of the property so she could just kind of live and survive. There were times, and this is documented inside the Columbia archives, there are times where her and her sister were living out of their car so that she could be dedicated enough to go and interview the Sioux elders and kind of keep this work of preserving the Sioux language and culture alive. She sacrificed for a while just living in really, really small means. It's kind of impressive when you think about what she gave up so that she could provide context for the rest of us. After several years of working with Franz, she actually wrote a book called Dakota Texts, which is a combination of a lot of short stories and cultural narratives that she was translating and she took down and wrote down. About 9 years later, she and Franz actually she co-authored a book with Franz called Dakota Grammar. These two books, Dakota Texts and Dakota Grammar, are still being used today in anthropological classrooms. So there's still texts that are viable and powerful and everything like that. So imagine that from 1930 something to today, almost 80 years later, we're still using her works because they were quintessential to the studying and the growth of this language and this culture. She actually went on to write a number of other books. Most of them were nonfiction. She wrote a couple fiction her books. One book that she really was proud of was a novel called Waterlily. She thought that this was a great tale because it told the story of a Sioux woman, and actually emphasized a lot of things that most of the anthropological world wasn't emphasizing. It was very much a male-dominated world, so all these ideas of what the women were going through and how their society and culture was treating them, and the hierarchies and all the things, they just wasn't being told. So she wrote Waterlily to allow that to be seen. At the time, she put it around to a couple different publishing houses, and those publishing houses all said the same thing. No one wants to read about women. I don't know if it's true anymore, but it's sad to think that that was a world we used to live in, where publishing houses would just come out and say, you know what, no one wants to read about women. So they pretty much said no to her. However, in 1988, she finally got published. The Waterlily finally got published and got released to the world. Unfortunately, she wasn't around to actually see it. In 1970, Ella Cara Deloria had a stroke, and that's kind of where a lot of her work stopped, is when she had that health issue. She worked all up until 1970, and then a year later, in 1971, she died of pneumonia. And she was dedicated. She wanted to keep the preservation alive. She is a huge impact and force in the idea of preserving the Sioux way of life. And because of Ella Cara Deloria, the Sioux culture and language is one of the best documented and kept cultures and preserved cultures of Native Americans. And it's all because of this amazing woman, Ella Cara Deloria. So for all you people out there who don't think that they can do much, or maybe think that they're struggling because they have to take care of ailing parents or all these things, just keep in mind this woman of Ella Cara Deloria, who in the midst of all these struggles still went out and made an effort to try to preserve. And because of her, because of this woman, we now have some of the best documented sources on the planet to preserve a culture and a heritage and a way of life that is so powerful and so important. So I want to leave with you that. I hope you enjoyed that. My name is Enoch Chapman for Day 5 of Native American Appreciation Month. Go out and hug yourself a Native American, and I will see you tomorrow.